In this video, you're going to find out whether you have an anxious attachment style, what you can do about it if you're in a relationship, and even if you're not, and what the anxious-avoidant trap is. So how do you know whether you have an anxious attachment style? Well, firstly, you can go online and take a quiz, or try see if you match with any of these symptoms. Number 1, you find others are reluctant to get as close as you'd like. 2, you often worry your partner won't stay or doesn't really love you. 3, you want to merge completely with someone else, and sometimes this scares other people away. 4, you might struggle with feelings of unworthiness and low self-esteem. And 5, when you find that with your partner you're not getting the intimacy and closeness you need, you use activating strategies, which are things such as obsessively calling them, not being able to think about anything else other than them during the day, putting them on a pedestal, or believing that this is your only chance for love. I'm attaching here a little helpful diagram that's in the book attached to try and understand the other attachment styles as well as the anxious one, so that you can see which symptoms correlate with which. So feel free to screenshot that and look at that in your own time. So before we try to figure out some solutions to your anxious attachment style, let's actually try to understand why we have secure people, avoidant people, and anxious people. Why isn't everyone just secure? So it comes to your childhood experiences pretty much. And let's go back a bit even further than that to evolutionary times, where it made way more sense to be in a relationship or to be with someone else in your community rather than alone. Because if you're alone, you're more likely to be eaten, you're more likely to be susceptible to whatever bad is going on around you, right? So this made more sense. Okay, but then why do we have some people avoidant and some people anxious? Well, this comes down to when we are in dangerous environments. If something is really bad, the avoidant person might develop because they think that it doesn't really make sense to attach to one person fully, because they don't know if that person's going to leave, if they're going to die, if they're just going to go away one day. So they keep their distance, they don't put too much into it. Whilst the anxious person thinks, I'm in a dangerous environment right now, it makes way more sense for me to latch on so that I make sure that I never lose that person and so that I'm always safe. So this is how we develop the two different extremes of attachment styles. So here, let's talk about the solutions and some problem solving that you can do to try help your anxious attachment style. Number 1, find out what type of attachment style your partner has and work out what your different ways of communicating to each other are. If you are anxious and they are avoidant, then stay tuned to the end of this video where I'm going to speak about the anxious-avoidant trap and how anxious people and avoidant people tend to find each other a lot. Number 2, try confront emotional moments from your childhood or your past and think about what could have led you to become anxiously attached in the first place. Start to begin to heal your inner child, recognize the trauma and the pain that they've been through, and be kind to them and prioritize them and see what they want. Number 3, which is building on point 1, learn to communicate with your partner and try to get them to understand your attachment style so that they don't respond in a poor way. For example, if you're anxiously attached and you feel like your partner is distancing and is not giving you the intimacy you need, instead of it boiling up and then eventually getting angry at them, which they won't understand, instead say, look, I know you're really busy, but I really miss you and I would love to spend more time with you. Begin to recognize when you're getting to that boiling point, but address it before in a calm and reasonable manner. Below in the description, I'm going to add some questions that you and your partner can talk about to try to get to know each other better and to really understand where your love languages and attachment styles are coming in. Number 4, don't abandon yourself. When your attachment style becomes activated, when you go into hyper mode almost, which is when you crave the most intimacy, you're going to forget about yourself. And so you need to establish some habits that make sure that you are taking care of yourself, even though that might happen. So for example, putting in a self-care routine, making sure that you're doing exercise most days, making sure these things are staples of your routine so that no matter what happens with your partner, you are still taking care of yourself and you can still stray away from your activating anxious attachment strategies. Number 5, try regulate your nervous system by doing yoga or meditating or breathing. This is going to help calm down your anxiety and also be able to see things more rationally and not take things out as quickly as you'd like to. And number 6, acknowledge your true relationship needs. Accept that for now, at least, you have an anxious attachment style. So don't go into new dates or relationships pretending that you don't need, intimacy, availability, and security. Make these obvious, and someone with a secure attachment style will be happy to hear this and probably be happy to cooperate with you on that. But don't pretend and then end up with someone who needs distance and you want to stay close. Finally, I want to speak about the anxious avoidant trap, which is very interesting, where anxious people and avoidant people tend to find each other very quickly. And a lot of relationships are like this. And what happens is that the anxious person wants to get closer, and they need this intimacy desperately, but the avoidant wants to have his distance or her distance. And they each trigger each other's insecurities, because by getting closer, the avoidant gets stressed out. And by getting further, the anxious person gets stressed out. And so you enter this cycle where they just make each other's insecurities worse and worse. But this isn't a doom all. You just have to have an open and honest conversation with each other about each other's attachment styles and recognizing this and trying to find a balance between the type of space and intimacy that you can offer each other.